Reading all of this, Joe felt something strange in his heart. Without hesitation, he went to look for Char. He found her on the terrace preparing traditional medicine. Joe walked up to her and asked if she really planned to leave. Cher calmly replied that she was making medicine for GTN so her injuries would heal faster. Hearing this, Joe frowned, telling her, "You don't need to worry about her. It's just a small injury." However, Cher disagreed, saying that it was her fault and that she wanted to fix everything before leaving. She then apologized again, saying that maybe she wasn't meant to work in a corporate environment and that she might never fit into this society. Hearing this, Joe sighed and said, "Since Grandpa entrusted you to me, I'm responsible for teaching you how to adapt here. I'll help you get used to this society." He then challenged her, saying, "You think you can't work in this field? Let's test that." Flipping through a file, he mentioned that he had a visit planned for a water plant in a village. He then looked at Sherry and, "Since you're from the countryside, maybe your skills will be useful there." Hearing this, Cher's face lit up with excitement. She eagerly asked if she could really come along. Joe shrugged, saying, "If you want to, sure. But remember, I'm the only one who can approve anyone leaving the company." He then told her to be ready tomorrow. Cher was so happy that she even dreamed about Joe that night. The next morning, GTN woke up furious. At the same time, Joe, who was waiting for Cher, checked his watch. He had told her to be ready. He had told her to be ready 1 hour ago, but she still hadn't arrived. Growing impatient, he was about to leave, but at the last moment, Cher came running toward him. Joe got angry, as Cher kept talking non-stop. She started telling him random stories, explaining that her home was far away, which is why it took her 3 hours to arrive. Even after that, she kept rambling, saying that she had never seen a plane up close before. She then started worrying about whether canceling a flight ticket would result in a refund, or if it would be better to travel by bus to save money. Frustrated by her endless chatter, Joe walked into the VIP waiting area. However, Cher was stopped at the entrance. Since her name wasn't on the VIP booking, she was asked to pay 600 yuan to enter. Hearing the price, she immediately backed away, saying that she didn't need to enter. Shortly after, the airport security called Joe, asking him to come to their office. Upon arriving, he found Cher there. Security had detained her because she had leather gloves, a rope, and some bottles of herbal medicine in her bag. These items were not allowed on board, and Cher was insisting that she needed to bring them for Joe. The security officers found this amusing, but they told her that she would have to leave these items behind. Cher refused, explaining that she had prepared everything for Joe's trip to the village so that he wouldn't get sick. Hearing this, Joe's anger grew even more. Security then suggested that she mail the items through the airport's shipping service. Finally, Cher agreed and quickly sent the package before joining Joe for check-in. Even as they walked through security, Cher stayed close to him. Annoyed, Joe warned her, saying, "Stay away from me or I'll cancel your ticket." They then boarded the plane and arrived at the village. Once they landed, Joe realized that his phone had no signal. Meanwhile, Cher found a tractor to take them to the water plant. As soon as they started riding the tractor, Joe's face turned pale. He was completely miserable during the bumpy ride. When they arrived in the village, the locals welcomed them by throwing beans at them. According to their beliefs, throwing beans was a way to bring good luck. Cher happily joined in, throwing beans back at them. The villagers then took them to their rooms, where they were given traditional clothes to wear for a welcome ceremony. Joe refused to wear the clothes at first, but Cher challenged him, and he finally agreed. However, when he tried putting the outfit on, the buttons wouldn't close properly, making it too tight. Seeing this, Cher started laughing, and Joe got embarrassed. In the struggle, they both laughed. The villagers both fell onto the bed together, and at that moment, a villager walked in. The villager immediately ran away in shock, thinking that he had walked in on something inappropriate. Later, the villagers invited them to perform something traditional. Before Joe could say anything, Cher stepped forward and performed her kung fu skills. The villagers loved it and then asked Joe to perform as well. Not knowing what to do, Joe hesitated, but the villagers encouraged him. He then tried learning some kung fu moves from Cher, but his awkward attempts made everyone laugh. Afterward, the villagers offered them food, with one lady suggesting that they eat freshly butchered chicken. She even invited them to eat at her home. Feeling overwhelmed, Joe decided to go find his own food. Cher tried to stop him, but he snapped, saying that he would find something to eat by himself. Frustrated, he wandered into the mountains, searching for food. There, he found some wild mushrooms and, without thinking, cooked and ate them. However, after a while, he started feeling strange. Cher found him sitting like a lost child. Looking completely dazed, she asked him what happened, and he weakly replied that he had eaten some mushrooms, but they didn't taste very good. Realizing what had happened, Cher panicked. He had eaten toxic mountain mushrooms. She immediately checked his surroundings and found the remaining mushrooms nearby. To flush out the toxins, Cher made him drink a strong herbal remedy. As the remedy took effect, Joe became extremely nauseous, and soon, he finally came back to his senses. To help him recover, Cher made porridge and brought it to him. However, Joe refused to eat it. But after Cher left, his hunger got the better of him. He secretly ate the food. When Cher returned, he started complaining about the rainy weather. But as soon as Cher left again, he went back to eating. Meanwhile, at the swimming club, a mysterious woman appeared. She saw a young girl learning how to swim, and something about it caught her attention. She then approached the girl, intentionally bumping into her. When their eyes met, the two of them stared at each other for a long moment. Then the woman leaned in flirtatiously and asked if he knew how to swim. She then smiled seductively and asked, "Will you teach me?" For a moment, he was completely shocked and fell silent. After some hesitation, Joe agreed to teach her how to swim. Ji-Tian then went to change into her swimsuit, and even after she left, Joe couldn't stop thinking about her presence. To calm his mind, he dove into the water. But even there, thoughts of Ji-Tian kept flooding his head. Moments later, Ji-Tian made her entrance in a swimsuit, and Joe couldn't take his eyes off her. Ji-Tian started flirting with him, saying, "I'm scared of water. What if I drown? Please protect me." She then pretended to struggle, making Joe hold her and help her swim. Of course, learning to swim was just an excuse. After a while, she invited him to dinner, and the two of them went for a candlelight dinner. They both drank alcohol, and as the night went on, things escalated. They ended up spending the night together. Meanwhile, back in the village, Shuri and Joe finally got to eat. The villagers offered them a special homemade wine, but Shuri refused, saying that Joe wasn't in good condition to drink. However, Joe insisted on drinking it, believing that Shuri might be up to something and trying to trick him. So he drank an entire bottle, only to get extremely drunk and pass out immediately. The villagers helped carry him back to his room, and Shuri stayed behind to look after him. This, however, led to a misunderstanding. Since one of the villagers had seen them together, a rumor quickly spread that they were a couple. Later that night, Joe had nightmares. In his sleep, he mumbled his mother's name, looking distressed. Shuri noticed that he was trembling from the cold, and she started checking his condition. As soon as she touched his forehead, Joe suddenly woke up. He immediately accused her, saying, "What are you doing? Were you trying to take advantage of me while I was asleep?" Shuri sighed, telling him that his condition wasn't normal, and that she had to check if he was okay. She then pinched his neck lightly, trying to check his pulse. By morning, Joe had finally sobered up. When he woke up, he noticed a pile of money next to him. Shuri quickly explained, "Don't misunderstand. I left this here because I was training you while you slept." Hearing this, Joe felt awkward. However, he suddenly recalled the events of the night before, and his face turned red. He then asked, "Wait, we're friends, right? When did we even become friends?" Shuri looked confused. "We've met before multiple times at company events. I just thought you were pretending not to recognize me." Curious, Shuri searched online and discovered that Joe was actually Zaren's cousin. Zaren then invited her to join him for breakfast, but Shuri, feeling awkward, quickly ran away. Later, she noticed that the villagers were acting strange around Joe. People kept staring at him and whispering among themselves, causing Joe to feel uneasy. Some villagers even pointed at his neck and smirked. Feeling suspicious, Joe ran to a mirror to check his reflection. To his shock, he saw red marks on his neck, marks left behind from Shuri's medical examination the night before. The villagers had misunderstood it as a love bite, and that's why they were secretly laughing at him. Furious, Joe stormed off to scold Shuri, telling her that because of her so-called treatment, everyone in the village now thought they were lovers. After that, the two of them visited the water plant, which was located on top of a mountain. The hike to the plant was exhausting, and Joe's condition worsened. Feeling completely drained, he demanded a vehicle. However, the village chief informed him that vehicles couldn't reach such high-altitude areas, and that they had no choice but to walk. As they continued the hike, Joe's stamina gave out and he collapsed. Shuri, seeing this, dragged him up and pushed him forward, forcing him to keep moving. Joe eventually gave up, saying, "Let's just turn back. There's no profit in this village anyway." Hearing this, Shuri got angry, saying, "We're already halfway up. At least take a look at the plant before making a decision." She then practically dragged him up the mountain. When they finally reached the water plant, Joe examined the facility. However, he wasn't impressed, saying that the plant's condition wasn't great, and it wouldn't bring much financial gain. For now, he refused to make a final decision, telling the villagers that he would inform them later. On the way back, Shuri confronted him, asking, "Your grandfather chose this village for a reason." She then showed him a video of the hardworking villagers, trying to make him understand the importance of the project. As Joe observed Shuri interacting with the villagers, he started recalling his childhood memories. Similarly, Shuri also found herself reminiscing about her past. Meanwhile, back in the city, Jiang became serious about his feelings for Sha. One day, he went to meet her, bringing along a book as an excuse. However, as he arrived at the underground parking lot, he saw Sha standing with another man-to-man holding a bouquet of flowers. Seeing this, Jiang felt heartbroken and immediately walked away, deciding never to show his face to her again. The man noticed Jiang and quickly tried to hide the flowers, but Sha had already seen them. Suspicious, Sha questioned him, but Jiang made a lame excuse, saying that he got the flowers at a discount. She then asked him about the woman he was with. Jiang revealed that she was someone he had casually dated in the past, but Sha didn't believe him. She invited Jiang to talk in private, or he suddenly confessed his feelings, and asked her to be in a relationship with him. However, Sha rejected him outright, saying she wasn't interested in relationships at all. Still, Jiang was persistent, asking if she just didn't want to be with him specifically, or if she wasn't interested in anyone at all. Shasha firmly stated that she had no interest in being in a relationship with anyone. Jiang, feeling defeated, simply said, "I understand." Later, he visited Zhou's office to meet him, only to find out from the secretary that Zhou and Shi had gone to the village to inspect a water plant, and that the water plant was under construction. Upon hearing this, Jiang immediately understood this must have been Grandpa's plan to bring them closer together. The secretary and the rest of the staff became excited, speculating about what could be happening between Shi and Zhou in the village. Meanwhile, in the village, Shi took Zhou on another tour. Once again, Zhou struggled to climb the steep hills, nearly passing out from exhaustion. To help him, Shi carried him on her back, using her kung fu strength. By the time they returned to the village, it was already dark. Because of the poor visibility, Zhou accidentally stepped into a hunter's trap, falling into a deep pit. Upon impact, his leg got injured and blood started dripping from his wound. The moment he saw the blood, Zhou's mind shut down, and he immediately regressed into his 6-year-old self. Shi jumped into the pit to help him, realizing that he had once again reverted to his childlike state. She tried pulling him up using a wooden stick, but he was too scared to grab onto it. Eventually, Shi used her own strength to pull him out. Once out, Zhou clung to Shi tightly, hugging her as if she was his only source of safety. She then took him back to his room, where she treated his wound and bandaged his leg. Zhou, still in his childlike state, suddenly asked. Shi was stunned, but he immediately answered himself, saying, "I'm 6 years old and my name is Fei." At that moment, Shi finally understood. Whenever Zhou saw blood, he mentally reverted to the moment his parents died. With tears in his eyes, that took his parents away when he was 6. "I won't leave you." The two then made a pinky promise. However, by the next morning, Zhou was back to normal. Realizing what had happened the night before, he felt extremely embarrassed. He refused to talk to Shi about it, pretending as if nothing had happened. Later, the villagers gathered to send them off. As they flew kites, they sat on a tractor and left the village, heading back to the city. Meanwhile, back in the city, Jiang was working hard to improve his swimming skills. He later invited Shasha for lunch, but she was busy with work. Not wanting her to skip meals, he brought lunch to her office. Seeing them together, and their next target became Jiang and Shasha. However, Shasha firmly told Jiang never to bring lunch to her office again, as she didn't want people gossiping about them. Meanwhile, Shi and Zhou returned from their village trip. Shi reported everything to Grandpa, explaining what she had observed about Zhou's condition. She told him that Zhou had symptoms of a split personality disorder, which was triggered by his trauma. Hearing this, Grandpa made a firm decision. He arranged for Shi to move into Zhou's house to take care of him. When Zhou saw this, he was completely shocked. He immediately confronted Shi, saying, "Didn't you say you didn't want a big house? Why are you moving in now?" Shi calmly explained, "I'm only here to treat you. This was Grandpa's order, and don't worry, I didn't tell him about your condition." Even though Zhou was already frustrated, now he had to deal with Shi at home too, which made him even more annoyed. And, as expected, Shi immediately turned his life upside down. The next morning, she banged pots and pans loudly, forcing him to wake up early. Then she dragged him outside for exercise, making him run laps until he was completely exhausted. After that, she forced him into an intense workout session, leaving him sore all over. Just as he tried to relax on the couch, Shi ordered him to take a shower and change clothes. Frustrated, Zhou suddenly remembered that he was the company president. With a smug expression, he walked out of the bathroom wearing only a towel. Shi, seeing this, immediately covered her eyes and scolded him, saying, "Put some clothes on." Zhou then smirked and said, "I walk around like this at home all the time. If you don't like it, leave." Shi threatened to open her eyes, and when she actually did, she screamed and covered her face again.